Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Krashy, and today we're going to be diving into the Theia Sky Runes, new map, MEW, patch release, all these things tier list. Now, I have since for a while now been splitting my tier list into a jungle and a lane tier list, so we're going to be going ahead and looking at that. So first and foremost, let's start off on the jungle tier list. My text is super big, so that's a little bit awkward. Okay, I'll put it up here, I guess. All right, so we're going to start off on the jungle list. So the jungle list, I don't like where that is. I don't like where that is. Let's put that here. All right. So the jungle list is going to be obviously all the characters where I would rank them on the jungle, and keep in mind that you do have to kind of rank things based on their relative strength, but also how good they are at the role. So I talk about that a little bit from time to time, but yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. So first and foremost, I want to knock out the S tiers in my opinion. This is again solo queue, but it's like solo duo trio kind of, so keep that in mind, but mostly geared towards solo queue players, not doing 5 stacks or anything like that. First and foremost, I'm gonna throw them all on the list of the S tier junglers in my opinion, and I'm gonna explain why. I think Gengar is an S tier jungler for solo queue because it has the ability to hard snowball games. This is like an exclusively solo queue kind of thing. The character just dismantles uncoordinated play. Like he destroys early game, he destroys mid game, and then he can carry that strength all the way through to the late game. And uncoordinated players don't really know how to deal with him. So yeah, I think that it's pretty obvious that Gengar is like really, really high tier, really, really strong for solo queue, and I definitely think that you should consider running it. As for Glaceon, Glaceon is kind of like a perfect jungler on Theia Sky Runes. This map has a ridiculous amount of farm, and you can get level 8 on this Pokemon for the Unite move really, really fast. So I've been playing Glaceon with an energy amplifier. You can get a level 8 Unite move, pop it, go farm, and get really close, maybe even get to it. I've been messing around with this, to getting another Unite move before Regieleki spawns. So Glaceon, incredibly strong. Both Icicle Spear and Icy Wind, now buffed Icy Wind, super, super strong. Do not sleep on Glaceon jungle. It is really, really insane. And Greninja, he's tried and true in the jungle. Tried and true in the jungle. This character has so much farm for surf resets. It gets really, really fed, gets really, really ahead. It can lurk in the bushes. It can gank well. It has good secure. It's got good team fight. It does everything, man. It does everything that you would want a strong carry jungler to do. So these are my S tiers. I wanted to go ahead and start off with those. Like I said, drop a like on the video. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below on any of these picks, but I'm going to try to not make this video 30 minutes long. So let's get into it. All right, moving into... Do I want to do this tiered or do I want to go by classes? Let's go by the classes. Let's start with all-rounders. Okay, so Aegislash I think is an A+ tier jungler. I think this character is incredibly strong. I've never been a huge fan of Aegislash in lane, although you can do it. I think it just feels really, really great in the jungle. You have so much control over this map with this Pokemon. You can fight really, really well, has good secure. It is basically the all-rounder version of Greninja. It just does everything really, really well. It's a really, really consistent, solid Pokemon, and it has been for quite some time, so I definitely like that a lot. As for this next all-rounder, Tyranitar. They nerfed it, but it's still crazy, dude. The first time I played it on Theia Sky Runes, I dropped 100,000 damage. You want this jungle, you want jungle for this Pokemon because you really need to power spike and hit level 9, but now you do that easier. So Tyranitar feels really, really strong to me in jungle for solo queue. It's the same thing. You can dismantle teams that don't know how to deal with it, and you can just really get in the back line and be very, very disruptive. Surprisingly, and I'm really excited about this, I think Charizard is insane at Theia Sky Runes. Mobility is kind of king, and Charizard with Flamethrower just has so much mobility, but there are a lot of the Altaria camps, and Flamethrower and Fire Blast burn those incredibly fast. So you farm really fast, you clear really fast, you move really fast. You have Fire Blast for cutting off chokes for the Rayquaza fight. This Pokemon is so incredibly good on Theia Sky Runes. It's just something as simple as changing the map to take Charizard from being like pretty good, pretty consistent to really, really good in my opinion, especially for solo queue. You can just get so fed. Like, I don't know what to say. And Charizard's a team fight winner, right? Like, he just dismantles teams and wrecks the team fights. I think it's really... Now, this next one, I'm actually putting high up for a very specific reason. Machamp. Machamp is going to go in A tier for jungle for one specific reason. Machamp has consistently been a strong laner, and he still is, but the thing with Machamp is that you always wanted to stack an attack weight, right? Just gotta stack an attack weight. Well, with this crit build, you don't really need to. Run crit runes, or you run attack and crit runes, or emblems, You run double crit items and then your third slot item kind of open for you to pick, and you don't really need to stack. You just blow people up with cross chop, whether that's submission cross chop or dynamic cross chop, doesn't really matter. It's your choice. I like dynamic cross chop a lot. You just absolutely decimate people, and then he's got an amazingly strong Unite move. In solo queue, it's the same thing. Like, you just kind of pop out of nowhere and you just blow 2-3 people up. You one-shot squishy targets with your crits. It just feels really, really strong. So I think jungling it is perfectly acceptable and really, really strong. Definitely something that needs to be considered. As for Buzzwole, I'm also putting Buzzwole in A tier. I need a little bit more time with this Pokemon, but what I played with it, dude, it feels strong. I'm going to go ahead and tell you my thoughts on Theia Sky Runes when it comes to all-rounders. All-rounders dominate this map. And the reason why is because this map is about getting a lot of score tempo and keeping ahead and staying ahead. So all-rounders are super strong because they have the health pool and a lot of the times the mobility to reach for scores. You know, you can push towards their side of the jungle and try to see if you can get a score. Guess what? If they show up and they're blocking it, you just run away. If they hit you while you're running away, you can take some of it. You know, being a squishy attacker, it's a little bit harder to do that kind of a play, but on some of these all-rounders, it's not bad. And his team fight feels good. He's been buffed. Buzzwole feels really, really strong, and I think it feels pretty damn good in the jungle as well. All right. These next few all-rounders are like, they're good, but they're not great. I'm gonna stick them in the B+ tier. Going to be Dragonite. Dragonite's not bad, but objective secure is just not nearly as important. The team fight on Dragonite was never bad. It's just, it was never as like the strong suit of Dragonite, but it's still a consistent pick. I think Dragonite jungle is fine. It's solid. You're going to continue to win games by playing it if you play it well, and it's solid. So yeah. As for Serena, it's the same thing with Serena. Like, there's a build on Serena with triple axle and probably stomp where you don't need to stack an attack weight, but it is kind of like that old Machamp feeling. Like, it's just better to stack attack weight, I think, on Serena. So I think it's a better laner, so I push it a little bit low on the list, but Serena is incredibly effective still. Super, super strong with stomp. Really, really good with triple axle. I love triple axle jungling on Serena, so she's really good. I could definitely make an argument for putting it A tier, but I kind of want to section it off because I think she's such a strong laner. So that's kind of my thought process there, but really, really strong. In Azumarill, I'm going to be honest, I never really know what to do with this Pokemon. This Pokemon's not bad. It's not bad at all, but it's not super strong either. So I just think putting it like middle of the pack feels good to me. You can definitely jungle, you can definitely get ahead. If you're running this build, you're not stacking an attack weight, but you can probably just run crit items, weakness policy, muscle band, something like that. He's kind of like the Absol of all-rounders. You dive in, blow something up, and then keep moving, and it feels pretty decent. So I'm comfortable putting it in the middle of the pack, but admittedly, I get a little bit weird when it comes to Azumarill because I'm just not a huge fan. And then, of course, Lucario. The thing about Lucario, and the reason why I put it B+ tier, is because you can jungle this Pokemon, but it's always going to be a lane monster, right? So I just don't think you need to. And Lucario, you usually do want to stack an attack weight, so you can jungle it. That's fine. You can get your E-speed and show up to lane if you really want to for the Altaria camp, but not a huge fan of jungle Lucario, but it's strong nonetheless. So, all right, moving on to the next all-rounder, and I think it might be the last one, is Garchomp. Garchomp makes its way to B tier, and to be honest, it only makes its way to B tier for jungle because it basically needs jungle just to even exist. This Pokemon's terrible. So I'm putting it here because of the role, not because of relative strength. If I was putting it on the tier list for relative strength, it'd be here, but there are worse junglers than Garchomp, admittedly. So it squeaks into the B tier. Garchomp's just bad, man. I don't know what to say. They don't buff this Pokemon. They don't show it a lot of love. Unfortunately, it's not very good. It's okay, but it's not very good. So that's what I'm thinking about it. All right, let's move into the remaining Speedsters. Absol's a monster on this map. Speedsters are good on this map. You're fast, you're mobile, you have high burst, you can clear camps with Night Slash fast, you can blow things up, you can, run around the map, you can score, you could run Floatstone on this Pokemon if you want to, or you can go big damage and just decimate everything. Absol's an absolute animal. I think that Talonflame hits the kind of high end of B+ tier, maybe low A tier, and the reason why is the scoring build. For solo queue, the scoring build is amazing. You don't really need him for secure, and he's not particularly good at team fighting, but honestly, I think that Talonflame's pretty interesting. You keep score tempo with this Pokemon. If you play that style while also still simultaneously being useful to your team, you're pretty solid. So it's probably pretty high B+ tier, or at least high-ish B+ tier, but Talonflame feels pretty decent. And as for Zeraora just has problems like getting the ball moving, like getting things going, but it's strong, man. It's strong on a map that has a lot of experience, so you're gonna get your experience. I feel like it's really, really good in team fights. Obviously, it's Zeraora. It's always gonna blow things up, so Zeraora feels pretty damn good to me. And then obviously we have Gengar. So, all right. Let's go on ahead and knock out supports and defenders, right? I'm putting Mime in jungle B+ tier just because of how broken Mime is. Don't do it, right? Like, don't do it. But if you find yourself in a game where like, oh, no one went jungle and I'm Mime, sure, go jungle, whatever. You can get away with it, but it doesn't really make sense. This is because of relative strength. This is not because it's a good jungler. It's because you can put Mime in the jungle and do fine with it, but don't, right? Wiggly, you shouldn't jungle. Blissey, you shouldn't jungle. Hoopa, you shouldn't jungle. And honestly, Eldegoss is like the only one that could kind of jungle. But why? But I'll put it in the C tier, sure. All right, as for defenders, it's kind of the same thing. There's just a ton of defenders that don't really have any reason being in the jungle. But if you were going to jungle some defenders, it would probably be Greedent and Trevenant just because of relative strength. They're strong Pokemon, they scale well, they do really, really well. But these other ones, the C tier, D tier, are just like Pokemon that you just shouldn't be doing it. And Blastoise, that's true too. Blastoise it's pretty decent. I jungled it the other day. It still feels pretty strong. It's okay. It's just an okay pick. I think Blastoise has kind of just like fallen out of favor. And then Slowbro, like if you're doing full Mage Scald build, you can kind of get away with jungling it too, but nonetheless, you don't really need to. Mamoswine, yeah, don't really need to jungle these Pokemon. So yeah, B down is like, just don't do it, really. Like, don't do it. And then of course Mime, he squeals his way in. All right, let's get into the attackers. I still think Cinderace is insane. It's not Greninja. Especially on this map, it's not Greninja. High mobility though, high mobility on a map that wants mobility. So I think Cinderace feels pretty damn solid. Admittedly, I haven't played a ton of Cramorant, but with the actual hits to CDR, I have to imagine I'm going to pull it down a little bit. I think that Jungle Cram is probably still pretty darn good, and Cram in general is probably still pretty darn good, but I'm naturally going to pull it down a little bit from like its A+ tier that I think I had it at in the past, just because it got some nerfs. So not exactly sure. Maybe I should put it back up to A+, but not 100%. And Delphox for me is insane in the jungle. I feel like CDR Delphox with Flame Charge, man, man, this Pokemon feels like a cheat code for solo queue. You are just dashing around, getting damage, you're kiteable, you're all over the place, and it is really, really insane. All right, let's talk about some of the Pokemon that I'm not a huge fan of right now. Decidueye, I think snipe-based Pokemon are kind of bad. You can't snipe objectives without vision. You're easily diveable. There's bushes and places to get ambushed all over the place. It's not a huge fan of it. I don't really like it. I don't know, maybe it goes here. Yeah, I guess this is a little bit more appropriate because it's technically better than jungling tanks and supports, but not a huge fan. Duraludon, it's like the same thing. You're just super immobile. And actually, you know what? I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off. I think immobile Pokemon like this have no business in this map to begin with, but also, especially in jungle, like not good. I might pull these down just because they're actual mages. But yeah, Duraludon and Decidueye, not a huge fan of them right now in the meta. Not a huge fan of them in jungle. Ninetales Pika, not a huge fan of them right now in the meta. Not a huge fan of them in the jungle at all. So Venusaur, surprisingly, I think still can kind of hold its own in the game. So it scales well, still pretty strong. It's not the best jungler, but it does pretty good, surprisingly. It does pretty good, so I'm a huge fan of that. And Sylveon Jungle. Sylveon Jungle still feels pretty solid, too. I don't think it's my favorite pick in the world. I'm not a huge Sylveon fan myself, but it scales super well, is really strong, and then gets Unite Move level 8, just like Glaceon, so really, really good there. Espeon feels way better, but I don't see it on the same level of some of these other Pokemon, although I need to maybe mess around with Espeon more. This is both from relative strength and maybe from the jungle position. I don't know that you would need to jungle Espeon because it does pretty good in lane, so I'm going to kind of pull it down anyways, but Espeon's been feeling pretty good to me. And Gardevoir still feels super strong. Like, this is a poking Pokemon, but it's not a snipe-based Pokemon. So when I'm talking about Venusaur, we're definitely not talking about Solar Beam. Don't play Solar Beam, in my opinion. But we're talking about Gardevoir being a poke-based Pokemon, not a snipe-based Pokemon. So you can still play her from range without having to fully long-range snipe. Feels pretty good. And Mew, I'm not going to lie, Mew is like an A+ or an A tier jungler just because Mew is super strong. Now, solo queue, admittedly, it's hard, but that leans into the kind of the duo trio queue. Playing Mew is crazy. Mew is actually insane. It has a case to be made for potential S tier Pokemon. So yeah, there you have it. So friends, that's the lane, or that's the jungle list. I'm going to go ahead and repopulate this, get it set up for the lane list. Don't go anywhere. Drop a like on the video. All right. We are back now with the lane list, and we already spent a pretty good amount of time on this video, so let's go ahead and move this along a little bit. Let's go ahead and hit it with the S tiers. I think that Mew is an S tier laner. I know that, again, same thing. I just got done talking about Mew. You kind of need some teammates to make this Pokemon really pop, and you can still do good in solo queue with it, but this Pokemon is insane and really strong in the lane. You start off with Solar Beam. It's just nuts. So don't sleep on Mew. Mew is really crazy. Really crazy. S tier wise, I haven't played it a ton in lane because I think it's just better in jungle, but a part of me wants to put either Glaceon in A+ tier or S. I'm going to be lazy. Part of me feels like it's A+ tier just because you can use it in jungle. So I'm going to knock it down to A+ tier, but I'm putting Glaceon super high just because of the fact that it's so incredibly strong right now. So let me know what you think about that. I was dabbling with the idea of putting it S, but I don't think I'm going to do that. Mime is S. Blissey is S. I think it's that simple. These Pokemon are absolutely insane. Mime is a tank, an SP all-rounder, a healer, support. Blissey is just a tank and a support. Really crazy. Got some nerfs, still insane. So yeah, that's where we're at. So let's go ahead and dive into the list with the all-rounders again. And like I said, I'm going to speed run this a little bit. I'm going to go with Serena and Machamp in the A+ tier. I think laning wise, they feel really strong. Both of these, again, you can go full crit build, not even worry about stacking, or you can go with stacking on Machamp, you can go stacking on Serena, just dominate and stomp people. Serena just feels so strong. She got nerfed, she's still really strong, and I definitely think that it's something that we just can't ignore, right? She's just so incredibly ridiculous, especially in solo queue when it's like a little harder to deal with her. As for Lucario, the only reason I'm putting him in A tier is because he's kind of fallen out of favor a little bit, but it's still really strong. There's a lot of farm in the map, so E-Speed has a lot of options for you to kind of like dance around with, but I don't see him quite on the level of Machamp and Serena in terms of the all-rounders currently. But I think admittedly still really strong. Now, relative strength-wise, Aegislash is incredibly strong. I'm not a fan of laning Aegislash, but I've seen it done. You can stack an attack weight. It's just a little hard in the early game, like a little bit, because the mobility that you have is limited. But Aegislash is incredibly strong, and I think it's a really strong laner. Just a really strong Pokemon to scale into your team. So I wouldn't sleep on that. Tyranitar. This is strictly based on the fact that it is a strong Pokemon. And honestly, this might be too high. I think I'm going to put Tyranitar in B. I have it listed as B+ tier, but I think I'm going to put it at B because you just need experience. You need experience so bad. But the character itself is really strong, so I'm going to put it in B. It falls a little bit lower of where the actual strength of the Pokemon is, just because the laning is not great and you need so much experience. But the map does have a lot more experience, so I'm a little bit weird on this one, but we're going to go with that. As for B+ tier, I'm going to put Charizard and Buzzwole. There's more experience. You know, laning in top lane with, like, say, Charizard is not bad. There's a lot of farm that's safe on your side. Laning in bottom lane is not bad with Charizard. It doesn't feel like the end of the world to lane Charizard. I'm not a huge fan of it still. And same thing with Buzzwole. Not a huge fan of it. These characters are being brought up because they're all rounders. Like I talked about earlier, being able to just rotate around the map and have a high health pool and try to score, it's super beneficial. It's actually super beneficial. So I like all rounders a lot in the meta right now. So I'm kind of naturally just pulling them up a little bit, regardless of how strong they are and regardless of what they do. And then Azumarill kind of fits this mold too. I'm no huge fan of Azumarill, but I think it's fine. Not the picks that I would take into lane. I think everything A+ and up, you know, pretty good, but you can definitely win some games with them, and they're going to do okay for you. So these are, it's, again, I feel like I'm pulling everything up a little bit more from where I want to put them, but it's because I think all rounders are just performing so well right now. And yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And then there's Garchomp. I mean, I guess I can rationalize it and just say I think this character's terrible. Like, it can't lane, it doesn't scale well. It's just not. It just doesn't really do anything. So not a huge fan of that. Let's go ahead and talk about the remaining supports. I still think Eldegoss is insanely strong, and I think that Hoopa is insanely strong. Whether you're using Hoopa for macroing around the map with Hyperspace Hole or playing Trick to actually just be strong in team fights, or whether you're using Eldegoss for, you know, like some additional damage because you're ranged with like Muscle Band, you know, Leaf Tornado brings a little bit of damage, brings rotation options, brings speed to the map on a big ass map. I think they're both really solid. I think that Hoopa's a little better than Eldegoss, but neither one of them particularly hits the S tier for me right now. And for solo, duo, trio, I think Eldegoss is perfectly fine. You can do great with this Pokemon. It really helps in team fights to get that massive heal off if you're at least able to hit like 1 to 3 people. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking about the supports. And let's hit the defenders. Trevenant, Greedent, super strong. super strong. Greedent's just Greedent's. I don't think Greedent will ever not be strong. Stack an attack weight, stack a cookie, whatever you want to do. Invade if you want to invade. Run a goal getter if you want to run score shield goal getter. Do whatever you want to do with this Pokemon, man. It's strong, really, really strong. And Trevenant is an all-rounder that's tanky, that does damage, that heals the hell out of itself. Trevenant's nuts. Trevenant's like borderline broken in my opinion. Really, really strong. Now, Slowbro, you still have Omega Tanky Tank. You have Scald damage or Surf if you want to bring CC. An insanely strong Unite move. Really good secure in the laning phase. Slowbro is just consistent across the board. Can't complain. Can't deny it. I'm a big Slowbro fan. Mamoswine I think is pretty good. And I'm dabbling between A and B plus tier. But we're, again, this is where you got to really lean on like a duo trio. I would never play this Pokemon solo, so I'm going to pull it down a little bit, but I do think it's like pretty decent. I don't know. I'm just kind of comfortable with it at B plus tier because I just don't think it's great. And Blastoise, it's the same thing. Blastoise is actually pretty decent. It's just it doesn't lane very well, and it's not going to be my go-to pick for playing solo duo trio, but you can get some work done with it. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking about it. So let's look at the last remaining tanks. I think Snorlax is great, especially maybe on this map. I haven't really played it. I don't really play tanks much, but you know, using block to stop scores and trying to keep the defense going, like actually defending goals with this Pokemon and being strong, whether it be in team fights or in the anti-scoring aspect. I think Snorlax is a pretty damn solid tank to play if you're, you know, queuing with some people. Crustle, however, not a huge fan. I mean, it's not terrible. You can do damage with this Pokemon, but if you're talking about like playing Crustle damage, which you pretty much always have to do at least a little bit of because that's just kind of the design of it, it's like why pick Crustle over anything else? I think it's okay, but it's just not super impressive to me right now. Yeah. Oh, and I forgot Wiggly. I think Wiggly is pretty good. I think it's pretty solid, but I'm not sure if it's much better than like Blastoise or Mamo. It's just an option that you can take. So yeah, we're gonna put Wiggly here. I want to keep it in line with where I had everything else. So Wiggly feels pretty fine. Not superly impressed, but I'm not disappointed with it either. So yeah. All right, let's dive into Speedsters. Absol's really good. I think you can lane this, you can jungle it. The character is good on the map. Speedsters feel good on the map. I'm pretty pleased with it. Gengar is a weird one because I don't like lane Gengar, but you can't deny the strength of Gengar. So I'm gonna put it B plus tier, but it is high B plus tier. Like it's basically bottom A tier. This Pokemon is strong. Like it is a strong Pokemon, but it's better in jungle. So I knock it down some. Zeraora, strong Pokemon, better in jungle. So I knock it down some. But they scale well, they do well, they perform really, really well. As for Talonflame, Talonflame is still gonna take a bit of a lower hit. I want to put it like B, C tier. The thing is like if you're doing like jungle invade backcapping, that's kind of like jungle role. It's just this weird, it's its own role, right? But it's also kind of like laning too. But you're not really laning. So Talonflame is just like okay right now. You can score and keep a lot of score tempo with it, so that's good, has some good value. But the Pokemon itself is just not the strongest thing in the world. It just has some good benefits to being played. Yeah. Oh, I forgot to do Dragonite. Yeah, Dragonite's okay. It's just okay. That's just how I feel about it. It lanes okay. It exists in the meta okay. It does okay things. All right, let's move toward the attackers. Cinderace, Greninja, stop laning them. This is not based on relative strength. These Pokemon are incredibly strong. They scale well. Stop laning them. You're putting yourself at such a disadvantage. You can't farm. You're gonna fall behind. There are better laners. Stop picking these Pokemon in lane. Pick something else. There's more than 2 Pokemon in the game. You will survive if you don't get jungle, and you will survive if you don't play Greninja, Cinderace. Stop being selfish. Help your team by picking something better and use them. Just do it. Please. We're begging you. All right. Delphox feels really, really strong still. The laning phase is a little bit slow starting, but you're going to be fine. You can still secure, and Delphox feels really, really good. Whether it be jungle or not, I think jungle is a better role for it, but Delphox just feels good. I can't complain. Sylveon, same thing. It just is strong right now, and it takes a little bit to get it going, but the Pokemon itself is just actually good. I think it brings a lot to the team. It's very safe and self-peeling, can move around a lot, has a lot of mobility, and then brings some good damage shred to team fights, to objectives, etc., etc. Espeon, this is still the one that I'm like messing around with. Espeon feels good. It feels good, but I don't know how good. So I'm kind of keeping it high up while keeping it a little bit close to the center. Let me know your thoughts in the comments about Espeon and how you think this Pokemon feels. But I'm thinking something A, high B plus tier. So, all right, This is where it's going to get a little bit weird. I hate Decidueye. I hate Duraludon in the current meta. Don't lane Gardevoir. She's a jungler. These Pokemon just, they don't bring enough, man. Gardevoir is really good, but again, she just doesn't lane. You can't lane this Pokemon. You're just putting yourself at a disadvantage. Just don't do it. And these Pokemon are just bad right now. They don't do well in the current map. They don't do well in the current climate, so I'm not a huge fan. Venusaur, I think, still does pretty well. It does pretty well for itself. Definitely stronger than like A tier, so I'm feeling like it might be on the lower side of A+ tier, but it feels really consistent in a lot of what it's got going on. Pram, same thing. It's doing pretty well for itself. I think it's pretty solid. The laning phase is great. I think it's since the nerfs, it scales a little bit less well, just because you lost some cooldowns, but it's still really, really strong. So yeah, definitely you can pick that. And Pikachu Ninetales, I just think they suck on this map. They're just not very good on this map. They don't have a lot of rotation. They don't have a lot of score opportunities. They're not particularly amazing in a team fight. Like, they're pretty good, but there's just better options, higher mobility options, safer options, more score potential options that I would choose from. So there you have it, friends. That's my lane list. We did the jungle list. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Like I said, there's a lot of wiggle room potential. It's still pretty new patch, so this is just what I'm feeling for now. But drop a like on the video, subscribe for future Pokemon Unite content. As always, be sure to be kind of one of it. Tell someone you love them. See you next video.